Let's move on to other stories now. This one is certainly what's going to dominate the headlines tomorrow as well. The Minister of Employment and Labour, Nxesi, says employers must take measures to protect the health and safety of their employees. The media briefing in Pretoria was on the country's back to work readiness. Well, this as a result of the country moving from level 5 of the lockdown regulations to level 4, which will result in more businesses and industries opening and more South Africans having to resume their duties.
Last week, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the move from level 5 to level 4 in terms of the country's response to fighting COVID-19. Many businesses had completely closed down due to the pandemic and will now resume their activities. Minister of Employment and Labour, Nxesi, says returning to work cannot be business as usual. Employers need to take appropriate measures to mitigate and eliminate the spread of the virus in the workplace.
Employers must take measures to protect the health and safety of everyone in their workplace. This includes employees of contractors, self-employed persons and volunteers. The process starts with a risk assessment in the workplace and a clear plan to implement the measures contained in the direction.
Organizations are required to provide workers with efficient personal protective equipment and have the workplace sanitized regularly. Nxesi emphasized that it is a must for every worker to wear a cloth mask and screen daily upon entering their respective workplaces. Nxesi says that businesses that do not comply with the guidelines will be closed down and charged with a criminal offense.
Labour inspectors are empowered to promote and monitor and enforce the compliance with the direction. Any employer who does not comply with the direction may be ordered to close business. In addition, as the failure to comply fully with the OHSA, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it's a criminal offense. Failure to take necessary measures to prevent the transmission of COVID-19 may result in the criminal prosecution.
The Unemployment Insurance Fund says there has been bulk payments of COVID-19 benefits valued at 5.3 billion rands, reaching 1.1 million workers, and a further 2.4 billion rands to be cleared as of Monday. Nothando Makutulela, SABC News, Johannesburg.
All right, so we're expecting, of course, between 1.3 to 1.5 million people expected to return to work from tomorrow as the lockdown restrictions ease. The minister also said earlier that employees would need to screen their workers for symptoms of COVID-19 for when they report for work. People are also advised to stay away from work if they experience any of the symptoms of the virus. So some of the other measures compel businesses also to carry out risk assessments at their workplaces. Let's chat a bit more about this now. Labour analyst Mamokgethi Molopyane joins me now on the line. Thank you very much, Sis Mamokgethi, for joining us this evening. It's always a great pleasure to speak to you. I mean, do you think, is South Africa ready to start, opening certain sectors of the economy?
Well, it's never really going to be ready, but I think what is essential is that priority for safety, priority for testing and screening of workers is one of the things that the minister highlighted that is urgent. And I say it was never going to be ready because most companies were closed down because of lockdowns, so they haven't had the opportunity to put measures or equipment in place or set up areas in their workplace in place that can be areas for screening and where possible areas for keeping people who are not feeling well. So all that may begin on Monday and throughout this week as companies are preparing themselves for a return to work, so to speak. But I think it's going to be difficult because not all the companies, especially depending on the industry, do not have the equipment. Maybe those in the health sector do have some sort of facilities that can screen people, but companies in various industries do not have that. So they're going to have to, as the Minister was saying, it's going to be quite, it's a little discomfort to ensure that there's safety, but we all must do our part. And I think this is the part where companies are going to have to as he highlighted, to spend a little in order to ensure that workers have safety, have masks, have protective equipment, but also that they themselves as companies have equipment that are needed for screening and so forth.
Mamokgethi, also during that media briefing, the Minister did say that companies opening must put the necessary measures in place that you alluded to protect workers. How difficult do you think it's going to be to inspect all of these companies and ensure compliance?
It's going to be difficult. However, to inspect all the companies, I've been given the number of local companies and multinationals that are operating in the country. However, we must always remember that the Department of Labour, even before the pandemic, has always had safety inspectors and inspectors that go and check safety, occupation, as per Occupation and Health Safety Act, that go check workplace if they are compliant. So maybe then, as I recall, a question coming from that briefing, that does the department have enough people who are going to be part of following up, of monitoring and on checking compliance? So perhaps that is the main issue, that maybe there might not be enough health inspectors out there from the department. But yes, even before this pandemic, the Department of Labour has done regularly checks on companies where safety and health is concerned. However, the number that it has, the number of people that it has, may not be enough, and they may need to bring in more people.
Yeah, I did hear the Minister say that, Labour inspectors had found that of over I think it was 2,200 inspections done over the lockdown period, amongst them in the public sector premises and health facilities, there was a 60% compliance. Is 170 inspectors enough, though? Obviously, more needs to be brought on board. And although the Minister said that they were looking at bringing more on board, in particular because of they know of the mammoth task that lies ahead.
It's really not sufficient, and I think this is where the Department of Employment and Labour will have to partner and work with the Department of Health that has had field workers and people that are capable or has teams that may be able to help the Department of Labour counterparts, as this is part anyway of a broader national assessment and broader national screening and checking of people. So this is quite essential. However, we must always remember that the employer has per Labour Relations Act and Employment Act, and really country's regulation on labour. The employer must ensure that the employee, the workplace is safe for the employee, that their health is not put at risk, and as such provide the employee with a self-working environment. And this is critical at this point of easing down on lockdown as level 4 kicks into place and people return to work, that it is companies that must foremost take the initiative of ensuring that the workers that are returning are provided with a safe environment, but also of screening the workers that are returning in case there are those who may have symptoms of COVID.
And I guess sanctioning those who don't comply would be a good way to start. I know the Minister also spoke about, getting some of these companies to account if they don't comply with some of, these stringent measures that need to be put back into place before they actually begin operating. I mean, what would serve as proper sanction in this particular instance to send out a clear message that obviously the workers themselves need to be thought about first? It shouldn't be profit that is put before the safety of employees.
Oh, absolutely. In South Africa we have incredible, even the Department of Labour, we have incredible laws, but often the downward spiral comes when it comes to implementation or enforcing them and ensuring that accountability is people are accountable for their actions. So we know often a punishment would either be a fine, but I think in the case of a pandemic like this one, where we have never seen and we do not know how long it will be, much tougher action must be taken against the company that breaks this rules, much tougher action must be taken against, not by the way, not just company, employers who force their employees to work in an unsafe environment, or employers who force their employees to work when they're not feeling well or they have the symptoms of COVID. It is critical, I think, that if it's going to be fines, because we know in South Africa companies are able to pay fines, or employers are able to pay fines and settle the crime, rather, so to speak. But it's important, I think, that much more harsher punishment be enforced on this. And this is going to keep the Department of Labour inspectors on their toes, but also this is going to keep the department, the relevant department, in terms of enforcing it in place, on their toes, yeah.
Labour analyst Mamokgethi Molopyane, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Just chatting a bit about, what some of these companies would be expected to put into place, whether South Africa is ready for, of course, more than 1 million people who are expected to return to work tomorrow as those lockdown regulations ease. We're at level 4. And, of course, it's not the entire sector or the entire economy that is reopening, but certain crucial aspects of South Africa's economy. Let's take a short break here on The Full View. Much more coming up.